welcome to another edition of the Stay True podcast. I am your host, Lamont, and we always want to convey this inspiration, motivation that triumph requires unlimited effort. I am pleased to have my homeboy, Mr. Denzel Ross, Mr. Extraordinaire. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Bro, it's indeed a pleasure, man. I saw you grow up as a pup, man. Now you're full grown pit bull. And, it's indeed a pleasure to see the growth, man. I'm blessed by it and inspired by it, man. So I'm just glad to have you on.
Yeah.
And one of the things, Denzel, is what I try to do before I begin any of the questions. I give the person who has the stage, which is you, an opportunity to kind of tell just a little bit about yourself. Who is Denzel?
Well, for those listening, Denzel Ross, born and raised in a small Caribbean island of Trinidad and Tobago, and migrated to the United States when I was about 17 to start my college career there at Park University, which is where I met Lamont, and we began this lifelong journey, friendship and connection. But studied in my undergrad computer science. So I tell people I'm a nerd by trade, and trying to make that word cool again. But studied computer science, went back, did my master's, and now for the last 11 years or so, I've been a healthcare executive I've worked for different companies, different cities and states. I've seen quite a bit. And now you're located in Tucson. But a big part of me is not just what I do for work, but I am a father, I am a husband, married with two beautiful girls. So just loving life, man, just living life and loving seeing the people around me grow up and be healthy and happy. And so all that good stuff is, so that's what I'm about as well.
That's amazing. Again, you listen to the Stay True podcast, being brought to you by True Beast Coaching, where triumph requires unlimited effort. So, Denzel, I want to know. You talked about your beautiful family. Talk about why Denzel is living and breathing, and connect that to your purpose.
Well, when we talk about your purpose, and one of the things that I enforce with my teams here, and it's always been the case in my career, when I interview and I hire people who want to join the organization or my team, there's one question that's always a staple, and it's, what's your why? Or what's your purpose? What wakes you up every morning? And it goes back to for me, when I was about 6 years old, man, and I had a life-saving emergency surgery when I was about 6 months old. And from that, I learned a lot of things, of course, after I continued to grow up and understood what was happening. But one of the things that my parents always, especially my mom, always told me is that there's a word out there for you. There's a word out there for you. And I look back here and I have it on one of my books here, and I keep it on my desk and I wear it on my chain, and it's something that I live and manifest. And that's Jeremiah 29:11. It's that scripture verse, and it says, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, and plans to give you hope in a future. And that's like the origination of my purpose and my why. And as I grew older, the more that I continued to understand what that scripture verse meant, and be able to internalize it and make it true and make it real for me and believe in it, that just really set the tone for everything I would deem successful in my life, whether it is something as small, to some people it may seem small, to some people it may be a big deal, but whether that is, completing my first year of college, right? And then going on to graduate with my undergrad, going on to graduate with my master's, and then starting my career at the level that I did. I am not a believer in coincidence, right? I think things happen for a reason. And when you live your passion, and you live your purpose and you understand your why, it's that GPS navigation, right? Because I don't know where I'm supposed to end up, right? I don't know where the end goal is for me, but I know that I'm following a path that has already been dictated for me, and live out my why. And then I'll be okay. I'll be okay. And, over the years, I've seen that ever so often I've deviated from the path. And I've lost a little bit, and I feel a little bit of pain. And it's God telling me, hey, you're not on the right path, that I set back over here. And so I think it's really important for us to understand and know what our calling is, know what our passion is, and live through that every day.
Bro, that's amazing. I was so caught up, man. I didn't know where to go from there. But, bro, the things that you were saying, I feel like is as I read through history, man, I hear a lot of trailblazers talk about that same type of inspiration, that understanding that why tied into your purpose. So, if you could, for me, which historical figures does Denzel Ross connect with, and why?
Wow, man, I'll probably call a lot of names that people may not know, because they may not be historical, on that front. I got to start with my father, man. Um, I think when you look at people who inspire you and people who teach you, there's two ways that you can learn from people. And I think there's one way where I could teach you and I could talk to you and tell you and correct you. And then there's another way where I could say very little, but you're watching me and you're learning how I react and how I figure things out and what I do. And when I think about my parents, from my dad, I learned about hard work, right? And I saw my dad sacrifice so much for his family and do things that put him last and put us first. And he would always tell us, don't let anyone outwork you. And so even when it came to studying, my dad didn't finish high school. He lost his some family members at a young age and kind of pulled him away from school to kind of help and support his family. And so for that reason, he was very adamant about education for us. And so he would always push that. And what was funny about it is my mom was an educator. She was a teacher. But the pressure around education really came from my dad. And I remember when I was in the airport leaving Trinidad to then come to the US for college, he said to me, he said, hey, always remember, you're going to be a student athlete. Student comes first. Athlete comes second. So if all else fails, you graduate as a student if you don't graduate as an athlete. Get the work done first. And so I learned about diligence and hard work. And my dad used to coach and treat us around that way. And then from my mom's side, what I learned about from my mom, just I watch how my mom took care of others. And whether it is that my friends always had a place in our home and always had a place to eat, always had a place to sleep, I always watch how my mom took care of others. And I learned that from her. And then so I think the foundation was set there. But then along the way, I had some people, as I got into my professional career, I had a lot of people, man, too many to name, you being one of them, that, we would always talk and, on campus and, hey, what's going on? What you doing, man? And keep doing it, keep pushing, keep growing. And just those subtle, hallway conversations and in passing, people like yourself, I had a lot of people like that. But once I got into my career, I had some people that taught me some very detailed lessons. And one is John Bluford. I owe him a lot of props for my career and the start of my career. He was the one who gave me my start. And one of the main things I learned from him was relationships matter. Relationships matter. And so because of that, the type of leader that I am today, I could get things done because of my title, but I choose to get things done through relationships. Because I could walk in a room and say, hey, as of today, we're doing this way. And people have to act, they have to accept it. I could do that, but now I go in there and say, hey, this is the decision that's being made. And let me help you understand the reason why we're doing this. And after I talk through it, now let's talk about it as a group. What are your frustrations? What are you scared about? Because every decision we make affect people. And so I learned that from him. And then there's another woman by the name of Teresa Collins, who was a CNO that I worked with. And she really taught me about what it meant to be an authentic leader. And it's one thing to care about people and make sure that people around you are feeling good and are comfortable and you're in a good place. But it says a lot more when I care about you as a person. So like my team, I tell them, I say, I don't see you as a CFO. I don't see you as a CNO. I see you as a dad, father of four. If you weren't here, you would be golfing and fishing, married to your beautiful wife for many, many years, who just happens to be my CFO. And I care about you as a person. And not only that, do I care about you as a person, I'm going to let you see who I am as a person, not just your CEO, as a person. And so those are on the professional side, two people, man, that have really poured into me a lot, that has helped me grow and develop over time, that I am the leader that I am today.
Again, you listen to the Stay True podcast, where triumph requires unlimited effort. This you was talking about Mr. Bluford, and I remember when you were a student and you were transitioning. Talk about that interaction you had with him, and that book that he told you to read. Man, that has inspired me still to this day, bro.
Man, when I first met Mr. Bluford, it was I was doing informational interviews. And so I was trying to get a job, and I was going out, meeting and talking to people. And I had someone say, hey, I think you should talk to Mr. Bluford. He would be a good person for you to talk to. So I set it up, and about 3 weeks after walking into Truman Medical Centers, handing my resume and saying, hey, I'm not looking for a job. I'm just looking for information. And I want 30 minutes with your CEO. I met him. 30 minutes turned to 3 hours. I was scheduled to only meet with him. I ended up meeting his entire leadership team. And what happened from then on, as we were walking out, he said, hey, I would like to offer you the opportunity to interview for this job. And I did that 2 weeks later. After graduating with my master's, I started at Truman Medical Centers as a special assistant to the COO. So I had the opportunity, unlike many others around me, to start at somewhat of a high executive level right out the gate. And one of the things that I learned from him early on is it's important, when you don't know what you don't know, how do you go about finding out what you don't know? Because when you don't know what you don't know where to start. You can't build a map, right? Because you just don't know. And so you have to go on this search to find out what you don't know. And when you know what you don't know, that's when you start building your roadmap. So how can I find this out? And so, one of the things, the books early on that I got from him is a really easy read, and it's called Who Moved My Cheese? And, that book really talks about change. And it's a really quick, easy book. And basically what it talks about is a couple rats who are in search for cheese. And one of them gets really, really comfortable and says, hey, I got enough cheese here. I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna be fine. And the other one said, you know what? I'm gonna eat some cheese for a while here. Then I'm gonna go on search for new cheese. And I'm gonna keep learning, and I'm gonna keep growing and expanding. And before you know it, the rat who sat there and ate all his cheese, in a short space of time, he turned around, looked around, and was like, oh man, all the cheese is gone. But by that time, he was fat, he was comfortable, he was slow, he hadn't educated himself about the other areas that could have cheese. And so he found himself way set back. But the other rat who had gone out in search for the cheese, now he had a wider understanding of the layout of the land, and he was able to find somewhere that had even more and better cheese. And so some of the things that you took away from the book is, you know, always smell your cheese, know when your cheese is going bad, so that you could say, hey, something's not right here. I don't feel comfortable anymore. I don't feel engaged. I don't feel pushed to be great. Okay, it's time for me to go. I need to move and find new cheese. Always smell your cheese. Always know when your cheese is going bad. Know what's around you. You know what opportunities are around you. And there's a list of things that I could talk to about, but that was one of the books that I read early in my career, and it really talks about how you change management and how you stay hungry and how you're always looking for the opportunity to grow, develop, and better yourself. And so there are a number of different nuggets that I learned from Mr. B as well. I'll say this one thing. When I started working, one of the things he told me was be a sponge. And me being the type of person I was, I said, okay, I'm gonna take that literally. And I'm gonna go back and research and Google the definition of a sponge. And what it is, if you know of a sponge absorbs what's ever around it. So if you put a sponge in Coke, it's gonna be a sponge full of Coke. If you put a sponge in water, it's gonna be a sponge full of water. If you put a sponge in milk, it's gonna be a sponge full of milk. And so he said, put yourself in the right place, get you a seat in the room, and be a sponge. And just absorb what you hear, ask questions in the right way and at the right time, challenge what you're hearing so that you get a bigger understanding. And so what that did for me, that just allowed me to have such a broader knowledge base in healthcare that I think really helped me as I ascended the ladder numerous times.
That's amazing, bro. As a CEO, what books are you reading now?
You know what? I'm about halfway through a book called Extreme Ownership. And the basis of the book, so it's based on 2 Navy SEALs, trainers. And what they do is in each chapter, they talk about their time in Iraq and Ramadi and different situations that they trained for and how they managed it. And then he relates that to everyday business and the principles. And basically what it comes down to is in the military, when you're a leader, you have so many people that report to you and so many opportunities for things to go wrong. But at the end of the day, you have extreme ownership. And so he talks about a mission that they were training for. And when they went out, it was just chaos and confusion, as you can imagine, like any other war zone. And he had to make a decision in a matter of seconds. And he made the decision. He got his men back safely, but he had some casualties. And it was friendly fire. And so he got back and he pulled his team together and he asked them, what went wrong? Who is to blame? And as you can imagine, like in the military, everyone, all the other guys on the unit say, hey, I'm to blame. I could have had a better sniper position to help out. Another one says, hey, I am to blame. I should have communicated with the other teams ahead of us about our position. The other one said, hey, you know what, I'm to blame. I should have found myself in a position in the Humvee that was a little bit further out that I could have protected you all. And he looked at them and he said, no, I am to blame. You know why? Because at the end of the day, I'm the commanding officer. I'm the leader. And regardless of who may have messed up, I have extreme ownership. And I love that book, man, because it's sort of the, the theme for how the leadership here in this system wants to operate. And I just fell in love with that book. I fell in love with the concept. So I'm about halfway through reading through Extreme Ownership.
Bro, that's awesome. Again, you listen to the Stay True podcast. We have Mr. Denzel Ross. Denzel, so you mentioned some really good advice. What are, can you, because for people may be tuned in kind of late, what are some of the best quotes, once again, that you've ever heard?
Oh man, best quotes. With me being healthcare, um, the ones that come to mind, the first one that come to mind is that in our state, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right? And from a healthcare standpoint and a nursing standpoint and patient care standpoint, one of the things we talk about with our teams is narrating your care. Because I could walk out the room and close the door, and your perception is, oh, he doesn't want to be bothered with me. Right? So he's closing the door to shut me out. But if I say, hey, sir, I'm closing the door for your privacy so that you have some time to rest, get better. If you're on the phone, you have some privacy in your conversations, then I take away your interpretation of what I did. So I narrated to you what I'm doing because you don't care how much I know until you know how much I care. And so that's one I think in my career has always stood out to me and something that I really believe. I also, another quote that, and none of these are groundbreaking, I'm sure, you and listeners have always heard it. But when you fail to prepare, you better prepare to fail. Back in college, when I won the award for outstanding alumni, outstanding professional, they asked me back then, hey, where do you see yourself in 5, 8, 10 years? What do you want to do? Man, and I was able to answer with like a yearly plan, right? Because I kind of had this vision of who I wanted to be. And I didn't know how I was going to get there yet. But that's, again, that GPS, right? So I kind of knew where I wanted to go, didn't know how I was going to get there, but I was following this path. So when they asked me that, man, I had a plan. And I was prepped and ready. And I had plan A and plan B and plan C. So I hit plan A, and when plan A failed, I jumped to plan B. And so I really do believe that it's important that you have a plan and you, because if you fail to prepare, you better prepare to fail.
Bro, man, I'm listening to you, man, and I'm thinking of questions at the same time, but I'm listening to you because I'm thinking about you talked about that ladder, and those of us who know anything about ladders, we know there's rungs in the ladder, right? So it's easy to take rungs for granted as you move up. How do you, for like people that work underneath you, how do you encourage them to appreciate the rungs? Not worry about how high they're climbing, but the rungs that get them to where they're gonna go.
Yeah, I had this conversation with one of my colleagues just earlier this week, and he was struggling with some things. And he was questioning, man, should I move? Is this time for me to make the move? And I asked him, I said, why do you want to make the move at this time? I said, list out all the things that are horrible about your position. And he started thinking, and he could probably come up with 1 or 2 things. And I challenged him. I was like, are they really horrible? I said, well, no, not really. I mean, they could be worse. And what I was trying to get him to see was that, at a time when you're your lowest, you could only go up. And so take that as an opportunity to learn. Take that as an opportunity to grow. Say pressure makes diamonds, right? And so you can't come out on the other end all shiny and perfect without going through the flame, without going through the pressure, with feeling like somebody's down on your back and you don't know where to turn. That's when I think men are made, right? And we all, well, I won't say we all know it, but most of us know it. When your head is bloody but
Yeah.
unbowed,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's the point where you look up, and that's when your why comes in and your purpose
Yeah.
comes in, right? So I
Yeah.
challenged him. I said, take this opportunity to learn, because you could learn from good and bad bosses,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because at time I've been blessed to have great leaders in my along my career, but I've seen other people under certain positions and certain leadership, and I'm like, man, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to
Mm.
be like that. So I learned how not to respond in certain situations.
Mm.
I said, take this opportunity, take all the good that you have around you and focus on that. But at the same time, see the bad, see the hard part,
Mm.
and use that to fuel you.
Mm.
Use that to fuel you. And again, this is why it's so important to have a why, is that because I've been in positions where I was like, man, I don't know if I want to be here. I don't know if I want to continue doing this.
Mm.
And I look back, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. I was like, all right, I'm where I'm supposed to be at this time in my life, at this phase, at this stage. This is where I'm at. I'm not a
Mm.
diamond yet.
Mm.
I'm going through the fire. I'm going
Mm.
through the process that I come out of diamond on the
Mm.
other end.
Mm. I truly, man, I'm not. I think of like scripture as I'm listening to you, man. I just think about Joseph being praised by his dad was the same Joseph who was thrown in a pit, was the same Joseph that was incarcerated and then became second to a Pharaoh that didn't understand the God he served, man. And so
Right.
I'm listening to you, bro, and it's giving me uh hope and faith to, even if I'm just a picture to pour into somebody else, man, because it's it's the process, it's the, as you said, the transformation from that position to diamond and the crushing of that and be able to endure the crushing, but to have that, like you were saying, that just have something to get you through that crushing because it won't last. So that 2911 is that,
Yeah.
and I'm like, man, that's really good. And see, this is the great part right here, Denzel, because I always give the floor to to my people, man, and those people who, as you said, that diamond process. I was talking about the Joseph who was praised in jail, still Joseph. The floor is yours, man, to inspire any way you want. Close us out, Denzel.
Well, again, I'm a huge believer that things happen for a reason. And I also believe that at the end of the day, you got to have a higher understanding and belief in something bigger than yourself. And for me, that's my go-to. And it's one of the things that my parents taught me from a very young age, is that the shortest path between you and a problem is the distance between you and your knees. Get on your knees, get on the floor. And man, I've done it in so many different places. I'm talking about, I've done it in airports. I've done it on the soccer field in the middle of a game.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily have to drop to my knees, but I've been taught and I have the knowledge that I could just step away and say, Lord, I need you now.
Yeah.
I need you.
Yeah.
Show up,
Yeah.
because I don't think I could continue.
Yeah.
I know where I want to be. I know where I want to go. And I'm not saying that I'm about to fail, and I'm not about to drop out of the race, but I need a little push.
Yeah.
I need a little push, man. And I'll tell you, he never fails. He never fails. And so I believe it's so important to have that understanding and that relationship with something that's bigger than us, that's bigger than, for me, that's my faith. And then again, man, set a plan, know your plan, work your plan, continue to stay close to your plan so that you see when it's going haywire, so that it's when it's not going the way that it's supposed to go. And it's not a problem if you run into a kink or one of those rungs in the ladder that you have to step back and say, okay, I'm better than I was a year ago. Does that mean that my plan needs to change? Your plan may not need to change. It might just need to be altered a little bit because your end goal is still the same. But now that you're wiser, now that you're older, now that you're stronger, the path to get there may be a little bit different. So how do I change? Because in my line of work, people ask me what I do, and I tell them I'm a change manager. That's what I do, whether it's my personal life or my professional life. And so have a plan, set a plan, stick to your plan, have a belief in something bigger than yourself. And when it comes down to the practicality of it, I think it's also important to have mentors. Have people around you who have your best interests at heart. I call them my personal board of trustees, right? And these are people that at any given time, I could pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm dealing with something that you probably dealt with at my age or at some point. Talk me through it. Or this is what I'm thinking. Give me your feedback. And I know they're going to give me the information, not that I want to hear, but it's what I need to hear. And some of those conversations were the hardest ones to have, right? But I knew that the people that I was talking to and the people that I surrounded myself had my best interest at heart. And when they told me, no, Denzel, you messed up. You shouldn't have done that. And this is the reason why. I take it. Said, okay, internalize it. Okay, how do I get better? How do I grow past this? So having a mentor and having people around you that you could bounce ideas off, because I haven't figured everything out yet. And I got a lot of living left. I got a lot in my career left. And so it's important to have people that you could just pick up the phone, and not only just pick up the phone to help with professional career, but people that you could just pick up the phone and talk to. One of the things that this pandemic, I think, proved to me more than anything else, I think I kind of knew it, but it just made it seem so real, is that, man, life is short. And at any given time, I could leave here today and not make it home today. Or over the pandemic with what I do, man, I spend the majority of my time at the hospital, and I've seen so much death, and I've seen so many people give up because they felt like they couldn't do it anymore. And I sat back and I looked at those and I said, man, if I reach to this point, who can I call? And luckily, I had people that I could call. But I know a lot of people who didn't have people that they could call. And for that reason, when the going got tough and they were mentally drained, they looked to other items to get them through it. And it didn't get them through it. All right. So it's important. And I think it's also important for us men to feel like that's okay. That I could call my brother Lamont and say, man, I don't need you to help me solve this. I just need you to listen for the next 15 minutes. Let me just get this off my chest. And then you chime in and tell me what you think. But let me just get this off my chest. And I could bear all to you, knowing that you're going to say in the end, Denzel, you're going to be all right, man. You're going to be all right. So I think it's important, especially for us men, to be able to do that.
Thank you, Denzel Ross. Bro, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. I'm thanking you for Lamont right now, but I know people who listen to this are gonna be very appreciative, man. And again, thank you for taking a moment out of your busy schedule, brother. My boy for life. I'm gonna let you know that, right? You know that already, man. Thank you so much. Again, you've been listening to Stay True Podcast. Go ahead, Denzel.
Sorry, before you cut off, I just want to appreciate you, bro, for all the work that you're doing. Like we talked about it, I think we've known each other back to early 2000s, mid 2000s. And I've always seen you on your grind and what you're doing. I know I asked you for the shirt. I was sporting it. I had people asking me, hey, are you a teacher? It's like education is the new money, get some. And so I just appreciate what you're doing and the path that you're taking and following your passion and making this work and having people to be able to be exposed on this platform and share the good word. So keep up the great work, man. I love seeing what you're doing.
Thank you, Denzel. I appreciate you, bro. Again, you've been listening to Stay True Podcast, where triumph requires unlimited effort.